Well, good afternoon, everyone. Now imagine you are teaching maths to your students, and your sum, for instance, is a plus b whole square is equal to a square plus b square plus 2ab. And you're seriously teaching them, giving them the formula, and suddenly a very annoying boy from the last bench stands up and he says, "Sir, what if I say that a plus b whole square is equal to a square plus 2ab plus b square?" You're puzzled. And from the first bench of your class, a girl raises her hand. And when you say yes, she stands up and says, "Sir, what if I sum a plus b inside the bracket itself and make the square of the sum?" How would you react? Let me take you to another scenario. Imagine that you're teaching your students science and the chapter is about sources of energy. A girl stands up and asks, "Ma'am, what if we start using lunar power like solar power?" And in one of your English classes, a student stands up and says, "Sir, I have written a poem on robots." How would you react? And one fine day, a little girl from grade 5 is asking you, "Sir, what if I do my homework on my tab?" What if your students ask you more creative questions like these? Would you get annoyed? What if your students come up with innovation? What if you are that different kind of a teacher that you always wanted to be? What if your teaching style is different from others? What if your questions are unique? What if you do things like this? What if you do this? What if you do it this way? What if? What if? What if? So many questions. Am I annoying or is it getting more curious? Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Arif Pasha from Burooj Realization. On this wonderful day, I warmly welcome you all for this amazing online training program on questions with a theme called "Questions Are the New Answers." We see a phenomenal response from you all with the registrations, and we have participants from corners of the world. This is so exciting. Well, so without any further delay, let's embark our journey on pursuit of a beautiful question. Let me ask you all one thing. Why are we going to do this? What do you think the importance of questioning is? Is questioning so important in today's fast-changing world? How the power of inquiry can help you? How it has been helping people at large, from businessmen to corporates, from schools to universities, and from entrepreneurs to social change makers, etc. So let's begin our training program. Questions are the new answers. But before we move on, let us get a briefing about what is it all about. Now, what is the objective of this online training program? The objective of this online training program is to encourage teachers to promote questioning. And what is the outcome that we have got to expect from this training? The outcome is teachers, students, everyone, individuals coming up with more creative questions, as they are the new answers. It is a 55-minute session. We have altogether 6 sessions, and it's going to be conducted on the first Saturday of every month for the next 6 months. Now, let me ask you all one important question. And what is the importance of questioning? What do you all feel that questions can do? Where it can lead? What it can come up with? Can a question give us a solution? Or can a question lead us nowhere? Well, anyways, in most of the fields today, people are showing keen interest in questioning, as it is a tool which brings out creativity and innovation. It also challenges the existing system and processes. You might have come across many companies or institutions often begin with a question. And it is also a well-known fact that Google, as described by its chairman, is a company that runs on questions. And business stars such as the late Steve Jobs of Apple and Amazon's Jeff Bezos made their mark by questioning everything. We had a discussion with a few educators, and when we raised this question to them, or when we posed this question to them, we found a genuine interest in the subject. Many teachers acknowledged that it's critically important students be able to formulate and ask good questions. Some of them also realized that this skill is apt to be even more important in the future as complexity increases and it accelerates change. Yet, for some reason, questioning isn't taught in most schools, nor is it rewarded, but only memorized answers are. As we go back to our memories in our school days, the one who always used to answer the right answer was praised, but not the one who was asking questions. So, indeed, on some level, we must know, as the school teacher knows, that questions are important and that we should be paying more attention to them, especially the meaningful ones. Scientists, meanwhile, have been great proponents of questioning, with Einstein among the most vocal champions. He was asking smart questions from age 4 when he wondered why the compass pointed north. In one of the interviews, he also reckoned that if he had an hour to solve a problem and his life depended on it, he would spend the first 55 minutes making sure he was answering the right question. We come out of the womb questioning, told by a small schools movement pioneer, Deborah Meyer, and there is a recent study which shows that on an average, a 4-year-old British girl asks her mother 390 questions a day. Whoa, it's a staggering number. And the boys that age aren't far behind. Well, now, if questioning is so important like breathing, then why isn't it encouraged or rewarded? And then slowly what happens is children stop asking questions for the rest of their lives as instinctively or as imaginatively or as freely as they do, unless there is somebody exceptional. Once I heard from a colleague of mine who is the HOD of science department at Red Camel International School that why we don't encourage our kids to ask questions which Google can't answer. Isn't it interesting? Have you ever thought about this? Questions posing Google. We don't often ask such questions. They are not the kind of queries typically typed into the Google search box. Well, anyways, it could also be said that ours is a golden age of questioning, with all the online resources now available for getting instant answers. Well, it's reasonable to assume people are asking more questions than ever before. That distinction would be based purely on volume, not necessarily on the quality or thoughtfulness of the questions being asked. Indeed, Google guesses what we are asking before we are 3 words into typing it. Before we could finish our typing, Google says that what are we going to ask it? So are we training ourselves to ask questions which Google can't answer, which we keep hearing from our students every now and then during our teaching? Well, in our training program, we would be encouraging questions that Google can't answer. Overall, questioning is more important today than it was yesterday, and will be even more important tomorrow in helping us figure out what matters, where opportunity lies, and how to get there. Basically, we all have been conditioned for answers. And that's why we are all hungry for better answers. But first, we need to learn how to ask the right questions. Well, our training is based on a book by Warren Berger, A Beautiful Question. And when we were reading this book, we got the answer to one of our questions, that what if we do an online training program on questioning? Well, anyways, you might see many references from the book in our training. So now, in his book, he starts the first chapter with an astonishing and inspiring true life story of Van Phillips, who began asking a question that if they can put a man on the moon, why can't they make a decent food? Why did he have this question and what happened later? Well, Van Phillips happened to meet with an accident when he was 21 years old, and he lost one of his legs. Well, at the hospital, Phillips was fitted with a pink foot attached to an aluminum tube and was instructed by the doctor to get used to this new best friend. But he refused to give up. He questioned, what is it? Why is it happening like this? Is this the right apparatus which I have got? Then the events changed so that he was not happy with the way the prosthetics worked at that time and began questioning, why can't they make a decent food? A question which made him invent. Well, after a rigorous effort of 10 decades, he came up with a beautiful invention. And when I searched for his name on Google, it was written Van Phillips, in brackets, inventor. What did he invent? This was his invention, a flex food cheetah. And the kind of questions he had in his mind, they were simply astonishing. He had these challenging questions. Why should a prosthetic should be made like a food? Why should it be like this? Why it should be made only of wood? So he had all these questions. And for some point of time, he was blaming that why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they coming up with a better prosthetic? Why aren't they thinking it like this? Why aren't they doing this? They. But at one point or other, you have to take a decision, and which he did. And he replaced the pronoun they with I. I. How can I fix it? How can I help it out? How can I come up with new prosthetics? How I can get into this field of prosthetics? How I can be of a great help to the humanity? How I can help the amputees? Bingo. That's what led to the invention of this flex food cheetah. It's better that we read more about this. So now, even we come across so many questions in whatever field we are working or whatever our profession is. For instance, a teacher has so many questions like, why is our teaching system or education system like this? Why aren't we focusing more on real life application? Why don't the students listen to me? Why am I teaching like this? There are so many questions which you have got to answer. But if we keep asking they, and the moment we replace that with I, how am I going to do? What am I going to do to approach it this way? So are we ready to replace the pronoun they with I as teachers, educationists, academicians, individuals? Now, I would request you all to take a paper and a pen and list down 10 questions which you need answers referring to others in the field of education. Whatever complaints or concerns you have, which you are expecting that others will have a solution for this, or whatever questions are lingering in your mind with they, just write it down. So I give you a 5-minute slot for that. Write down your questions, or else if you want you can type the questions and send it out here. List down the questions which are there in your mind whenever you start teaching, whenever you are there in the school. What are the questions which you keep getting again and again? So what are we going to do? So I'm just typing it out here. What kind of questions you have got to list down? I have written a few questions as reference. So whatever questions you are getting in your mind, write them down and just look at the question and see where do I fit into it. Replace the they with I. Strike out the they and write I. When am I gonna allow my students to come up with innovation? What am I going to do? So when you start replacing this they with I, that's when we start getting solution. Think over it, think about it again and again. Because these are the questions which helped me as a teacher come up with solutions when I had challenges to face as a teacher. Because there is so much a question can do. Write down all the questions wherever you have they in it. Strike the they out and write I. And now try to reframe the question and see how the question sounds now. Do you feel that there is some action required now? Yes, of course. So let's see what a question can do. Well, A question sometimes can lead us to the solution, provided it's the right kind of a question. One of the questions Dan Rothstein had was, why can't we encourage students for finding out answers with just questioning? And hence, it led to opening an institute based on only questions called Right Question Institute, founded by Dan Rothstein along with his colleague Luz Santana, which is a small, fascinating non-profit group formed in order to try to advance the teaching of questioning skills. And he also says that questions produce the light bulb effect. Well, in that institute, the students are instructed to think and brainstorm using only questions. They start with a divergent what if speculation, and then gradually use their own questions. Can we encourage our students solve problems with the help of questioning? Can we guide them towards better questioning? Can we come up with ideas and strategies where our students are free to question? Well, there are case studies. The teachers go into defensive mode when students start asking them questions. Well, why do we do it? Because, as Sir Ken Robinson has observed, in our culture, not to know is to be at fault socially. And moreover, if you are a teacher, then the expectations are very, very high. The students, parents, management, everybody starts expecting that we should know everything. Well, keeping this in mind, what happens is we get into the defensive mode that I know it all, and we end up not encouraging our students ask questions. Beautiful. So let's think about this Right Question Institute. How can we instigate our students to start asking right questions? How can we promote them? In the next 5 sessions, we will explore this area a lot. Now, before we tackle our questions, or before we see or replace they with I, now as it's done, so we'll just move on. How do we approach our questions? Sometimes when in our classroom or in the school situations arise, the first question which we get is, oh my God, what am I going to do? Why is this happening to us? Why is this happening to me? Sometimes even the tone of the question also makes a huge difference. What if the situation is going to be a great opportunity for me to grow? What if this is a chance where I see what I can do? So when we reframe the question and when we change our approach towards the challenges arising in our teaching proficiency, we tend to get solutions. Well, now, when I was a teacher, the biggest question I had was, how will I make the 10th graders perform well in their exams, especially the boys? I had so many questions like, why aren't they listening to whatever I say? What is wrong with them? What kind of an upbringing this school have had on them? Why they don't understand the importance of education, etc., etc., etc. And I'm sure that many of us would have gone through this question. But after a while, when I approached the question and changed the tone of the way I asked question to, what if I teach them this way? What if I come up with a game? What if I divide them into teams? Bingo. Changing the approach towards the questions gave solution to me. Well, in that year, I could see that they are engaged. They were performing well, and they started doing well in their exams. And finally, when the results were out, everybody passed. And on that year, I was awarded the best teacher. Well, so one of my favorite stories which inspired me a lot was of Peter Damon. He is a graphic designer from paper, a 3D designer from paper. He says that there was a project in his institution where they had to come up with 3D buildings using paper. So these were all big buildings, but he had a problem. He did not have a car. He had to travel by a metro train. So whenever he used to travel by a metro train, because of the crowd or because of the damage, his project would collapse. So he was thinking again and again, what if I come up with a solution? What if I make a collapsible project or model of my 3D paper design? Watch a few videos on YouTube on him. It's really inspirational. He says how he came up with this idea of pop-up cards to take his project to the institution. And today he is one of the great pop-up artists. Well, so this is what the speculation what if can do. So well, in this fast changing world, what is the question we must be asking now? Probably the question would be that with all that's changing in the world and in our students' lives, what business are we really in? So Warren Berger beautifully jots down a set of questions which I think that we must be answering now. As you all have a piece of paper and a pen with you all, note these questions down. Question number 1. How is my field or industry changing? I'll type the questions here. How is my field or industry changing? Question number 2. What trends are having the most impact on my field? And how is that likely to play out over the next few years? Which of my existing skills are most useful and adaptable in this new environment, and what new ones do I need to add? Should I diversify more or focus on specializing in one area? The last question is, should I be thinking more in terms of finding a job or creating one? So these are the 5 questions which Warren Berger has put in his book, which is quite fascinating. If you start asking these questions, we'll come up with more solutions, because this is the time that we change with regards to our teaching style, with regards to our approach towards kids and their education. So are you all ready for this fast moving world? Well, why do I have to start over? Well, I have a degree. I have been teaching from so many years. Why should I have to start over again? Because the things are changing of late. And if there is this questions or answers, Questions are rising in value while answers are declining. To support this statement, Tony Wagner, Harvard education expert, says that right now, knowledge is a commodity because nowadays, known answers are everywhere and easily accessible as we are drowning in all of its data. So the question now is, what can we do with that knowledge in pursuit of a query? So does it mean there is no ignorance in the world now? Does it mean that there is nothing to explore or learn new? Actually, there is more ignorance for us to explore. There are more collectively known things that we as individuals can learn about, and a vast expanse of unknown things we could potentially discover. When it comes to discovery, does it mean that the inventions that happened in a massive scale are worthwhile? No. Even the smallest of the small discoveries are worthwhile mentioning. Last time when I visited my friends, he had a very nice video related to education, but the screen was very small, so I asked him, how do you manage seeing using your device for watching videos? He quickly ran into his room and got a strange apparatus with a rectangular magnifying glass. I asked him, what's this, in amazement. To my surprise, he told me that it's a mobile screen magnifier, and I bought it from one of the street vendors. There are possibilities that somebody somewhere would have had this question as to what if we magnify the mobile screen? And well, that question gave this answer. If you find one, try to buy one. Well, okay. Now if we have got to be a lifelong learner by questioning, we might have to go back to our childhood days where we were questioning a lot and start being neotenous. Being a biological term that describes the retention of childlike attributes in adulthood. So are we all ready to be childlike in asking questions? Are you all ready to be neotenous? Well, if you have got to be neotenous, we have got to change our classes as well, because the classes which we are seeing are outdated. And now we have to see the education system, the world, from a new whole perspective. In the olden days, education was just mere transfer of information from one end to the other end. So it was just like a delivery job. Whatever I know, I deliver it to my students. But now it's completely changed. It's not just delivery of information, it's more than that. So we have to change our classes, we have to change our frames to see the new world from a new whole perspective. We just don't have to encourage or reward right answers. We have to start praising them for the right questions as well. When we start doing this, see what happens then. We see a big change in the lives of our students. So, when we are more curious about seeing the world from a new perspective or coming up with a solution, and when we keep questioning the challenges which comes in our teaching field and the curiosity level, what happens is it will give more solutions. So when we are curious about questioning and start looking for solutions by questioning, we get astonishing results and solutions like how Bette Nesmith Graham got by painting over her mistakes. Such a beautiful thing. When you just look at this, painting over our mistakes, how did this invention come out? When electric typewriters became popular in the 1950s, the ribbons made it harder to erase typing errors, a problem noticed by Bette Nesmith Graham. Graham worked two jobs, bank secretary and heavy typist by day, commercial artist at night. One night, while doing artwork, she wondered, what if I could paint over my mistakes when typing, the way I do when painting? She filled a small bottle with a paint and water formula and brought it to the office. Her miracle mixture made it easy to cover over typing errors. And soon, Graham was supplying hundreds of other secretaries with her correction fluid. The year before she died in 1980, Graham sold liquid paper, for close to $50 million. Wow, that's amazing. Now the biggest question is, can technology help us ask better questions? Well, for the most part, it is better suited to responding to questions, not so good at asking them. Picasso was onto this truth 50 years ago when he commented, computers are useless, they only give you answers. Well, on the other hand, technology can serve up amazing, innovative, life-changing answers if we know how to ask for them. The potential is mind-boggling as IBM's Watson system demonstrate. Its winning appearance in 2011 on the TV quiz show Jeopardy proved it could answer questions better than any human. Now we have computers who can actually answer questions better than human. And today, IBM is feeding the system a steady diet of, among other things, medical information, so that it can answer just about any question a doctor might throw at it. So if a patient comes and exhibits that I have symptom A, B, and C, and what might this indicate? But the doctor still has to figure out what to ask. And then must be able to question Watson's response, which might be technically accurate but not commonsensical. So in the current era of Google and Watson, with databases doing much of the knowing for us, many critics today question the wisdom of an education system that still revolves around teaching students to memorize facts. One such education critic, the author Sugata Mitra, made just his point at a TED conference by tossing out the provocative question, is knowing obsolete? Of course, not all knowledge is mere factual information. The TED question as worded is overly broad. But if we zero in on a narrow kind of knowledge, stored facts or answers, then that kind of knowing might be better left to machines with more memory. Well, there was one of these incidents which came into the mind of a scientist where he asked this question, why did my candy bar melt? Will my popcorn pop? During the World War II, Percy Spencer, a self-taught engineer leading the power tube division at defense contractor Raytheon, focused his efforts on the magnetron, the core tube that made radars so powerful they enabled US bombers to spot periscopes on German submarines. Standing next to a magnetron one day, Spencer noticed that a candy bar in his pocket had melted. He then wondered, could the energy from the radio waves be used to actually cook food? He placed some popcorn kernels near the tube and soon was munching on the world's first microwave popcorn. And in 1947, Raytheon put the first radar-range microwave ovens on the market. But it took another 20 years before the appliances were small enough to fit on a countertop. So a question can lead to innovation and creativity. Now why? Why mostly we have to keep asking this question, why? Well, as Van Phillips began to proceed further on his own journey, he was, to use Brown's words, questioning, experimenting, connecting things. He revised his initial why question, if they can put a man on the moon, why can't they make a decent food? The situation Van Phillips confronted was unusual in some ways. He didn't have to go looking for his why problem, it came to him. So what problems are we facing in our education field, and why? Why are we not answering them? But there is one big question we have got to be asking again. Just asking why without taking any action may be a source of stimulating thought or conversation, but it is not likely to produce change. To produce change, we have to come up with action. So questioning to actioning. So how can we start questioning, and then how can we come up with the sequence where why, what if, and how you end up getting a solution. This is a formula which is put by Warren Berger. So how do you move from asking to action? So what happened with Vaughan Phillips? Let's see. He progressed from why to what if. Phillips was working in the prosthetic industries and doing his own contextual inquiry. So to understand how things are going to work out. So he just got to answer this question, and to get the answer, he had to again and again ask the question why and how, why, what if, and how queries which worked for him. So now, there is another activity now. List down at least 5 why questions about your field and mail us. List at least why questions about your educational field and send us a mail. Like, why did I become a teacher? Why am I an academician? So list down all these questions and send us a mail at teach@burooj.org. So now we have a 5-minute slot for questions. If you have any questions, start typing them on group chat. So there are 2 action items from this today's workshop. Number 1 is jot down 10 questions where you have they and replace that with I. Analyze the question, reframe the approach, and see how you can come up with a probable solution. And the next action item is write 5 questions starting with why and send us a mail at teach@burooj.org. And there is an open forum now for question and answers. If you have any further questions, so we would be pondering more about the action item and how do we ask questions to our students and how it is related to our educational field. So we have another 5 more sessions where we will be learning more about questioning skills and coming up with creative and innovative questions. And we would probably have more guests coming in from corners of the world who are going to be the experts in this field. So hope to see you all again. I hope you all enjoyed the workshop and the training today. If you have any queries or any further information required, you can always get back to us or call us. So with a note of Albert Einstein, the important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. I would like to end today's session. Thank you for being with us. Hope to see you all soon again. Next month, first Saturday, between 12:05 to 1. Thank you and have a very good day ahead.